They say that somewhere, hidden far from the eyes of the world, lies a village that defies the laws of reality. It is no ordinary place, no map can guide you to it, no road will take you there. For this village exists in fragments of time, revealing itself only when the clock strikes 12. As the world sleeps, under the watchful gaze of the moon, the forgotten village emerges from the shadows. Its arrival is silent, its presence unnatural, and its existence fleeting. One moment, there's nothing but an empty stretch of forest or a desolate plain, and the next, there it is, an entire settlement cloaked in the pale glow of the night. The buildings are aged, their walls warped and cracked, as if they've endured centuries of neglect. The air grows heavier near its borders, carrying with it an inexplicable chill, even on the warmest of nights. Lanterns flicker in the windows, though no hand lights them, and smoke drifts lazily from chimneys where no fire burns. But it's the silence that grips you first. An unnatural stillness, so profound it presses against your ears. No birds chirp. No insects hum. Even the wind seems hesitant to stir, as though the village itself forbids the intrusion of sound. Those brave, or foolish, enough to approach it describe a feeling of being watched. Shadowy figures move behind curtains, their shapes barely distinguishable, but their presence undeniable. Footsteps echo on cobblestone streets, though no one can ever see who walks them. And when the village disappears, it does so as mysteriously as it arrives. By the time the first rays of dawn creep across the horizon, the land is barren once more. No trace of the buildings remains. Not a single brick, not a scrap of debris, nothing to suggest that a village ever stood there at all. Some say it's cursed, a remnant of a tragic past that refuses to rest. Others believe it's a doorway, a bridge to a realm where the living are not welcome. But those who've lingered too long tell a darker tale, a tale of whispers that draw you in, of doorways that open on their own, and of people who vanish without a trace. So, I ask you, if you found yourself in the path of this village, would you dare to step inside? Would you risk becoming part of its mystery? Or would you flee before the clock strikes 12, knowing it might be the last time you see the light of day? This is a story about a village unlike any other, a place that exists at the edges of reality, where time and space twist into something unrecognizable. Known only in hushed whispers and obscure legends, the village has no official name, no coordinates, no documented history. It is a ghost, a fleeting apparition that appears only under the cover of midnight and vanishes before the first light of dawn. The story begins with the villagers themselves, or rather, what remains of them. Centuries ago, something terrible happened, a tragedy so profound that it tore the village from the fabric of time. The people, their homes, even the very land they stood on were swallowed by darkness, leaving nothing but a void. But the village wasn't destroyed. No, it was condemned. Cursed to reappear only at the witching hour, a reminder of something too horrifying to be forgotten. What makes this story so unsettling isn't just the mystery of the village's existence. It's the effect it has on those who encounter it. Travelers lost in the woods, wanderers who stumble upon it by chance, and thrill-seekers who venture out in search of it, none of them emerge unchanged. Some speak of strange visions, of voices calling to them from within the empty streets. Others recall vivid nightmares long after they've left, as though the village planted something deep in their minds. And then, there are the ones who don't return at all. The unsettling truth is this: the village doesn't just appear, it beckons. Its presence is an invitation, a lure for the curious, the reckless, and the desperate. And once you step inside, you may never leave. Doors slam shut without warning. Paths that should lead back to safety twist and loop endlessly. Time seems to stretch, each minute feeling like an eternity. What lies at the heart of this forgotten village? Is it a punishment? A trap? Or perhaps a warning of something far greater and far darker than we could ever imagine? Tonight, we will explore the legend in its entirety. From the cryptic stories passed down through generations to the chilling accounts of those who've encountered it firsthand. By the end, one question will remain: is the forgotten village merely a figment of folklore, or is it waiting, hidden in the dark, ready to reveal itself once again? Long ago, this village was like any other, a small, tight-knit community nestled deep within the wilderness. Its residents lived simple lives, tending to their fields by day and gathering by firelight at night. But beneath the surface of their quiet existence lurked a secret, one so vile and damning that it sealed their fate. The story goes that the village elders, in their desperation to protect their home from an oncoming war, sought help from a shadowy figure, a traveler who appeared one stormy night, cloaked in black and speaking in riddles. He offered them a solution, a ritual that would make their village invisible to enemies, hidden from all who sought to harm them. Desperation clouded their judgment. They agreed, unknowingly offering a piece of themselves in exchange for the safety of their land. The ritual was performed under a blood moon, and the stranger vanished the moment it was complete. At first, it seemed the spell had worked, the approaching army passed by without a second glance. But as the days turned to weeks, the villagers began to notice changes. The sun no longer rose as brightly over their fields. Their shadows grew long and distorted, even at noon. Whispers echoed through empty streets, voices that didn't belong to any of them. And then, on the 13th night after the ritual, the village vanished completely, swallowed by darkness. When it returned, it was no longer the same. It appeared only at the stroke of midnight, its streets unnaturally silent, its people frozen in time, as though caught in a moment they could never escape. Some say the villagers were cursed to repeat their final hours over and over, their punishment for meddling with forces beyond their understanding. Others believe they were claimed by the stranger, taken to serve him in another realm, leaving behind only the echo of their existence. The stories of the forgotten village have persisted through the centuries, whispered from one generation to the next. One tale speaks of a hunter who wandered too far into the woods on a moonlit night. He claimed to see the village rise from the earth like a mirage, its lights flickering to life as though beckoning him. He stepped closer, drawn by the faint sound of music, an old, haunting melody that seemed to come from nowhere and everywhere all at once. But as he reached the edge of the village, he heard his name whispered from behind him. Spinning around, he saw no one. When he turned back, the village was gone. Another legend tells of a group of teenagers who dared each other to find the village. They returned hours later, pale and trembling, refusing to speak of what they'd seen. The only clue was a sketch one of them had hastily drawn, a cobblestone street lined with houses that seemed to watch them, their windows like dark, unblinking eyes. In another account, a traveler seeking shelter on a stormy night claimed he stumbled upon the village. Grateful, he knocked on the door of one of the houses, but no one answered. Exhausted, he entered anyway, finding a warm fire and a plate of food waiting for him. He fell asleep by the hearth, only to awaken in the middle of a barren field, with no sign of the village anywhere around him. Over the years, the forgotten village has attracted the attention of those who seek to uncover its secrets. Paranormal investigators, urban explorers, and even seasoned historians have ventured into the woods where the village is said to appear. Few return with answers. Many don't return at all. One of the earliest documented expeditions was led by a folklorist named Dr. Eleanor Graves in the late 19th century. Fascinated by tales of vanishing villages, she journeyed to the region with a small team. They camped near the rumored site, armed with lanterns and journals. On the third night, Graves wrote of seeing dim lights in the distance and hearing faint, melodic bells. Her final journal entry reads, "We are being watched. Something stirs within the village, something ancient and patient." Neither she nor her team was ever seen again. In the 1970s, a group of paranormal enthusiasts equipped with modern recording equipment attempted to document the village's midnight appearance. They captured hours of static-filled audio punctuated by faint voices whispering unintelligible words. The most chilling part of their footage shows the group walking toward the village, and then, one by one, disappearing from view. The camera, left behind, recorded nothing but darkness until dawn. Most recently, a historian named Arthur Caldwell claimed to have found maps predating the village's disappearance. His research suggested that the village was built on sacred ground, disturbing something that should never have been unearthed. Caldwell disappeared shortly after revealing his findings, leaving behind only a single cryptic note: "The village does not want to be found." Entering the forgotten village is no simple task. Those who step across its boundary report a sudden and overwhelming sense of dread, as if the air itself resists their presence. The landscape shifts subtly, disorienting even the most experienced explorers. Landmarks vanish. Footsteps echo louder than they should, as if the ground itself is hollow. Those brave enough to touch the village's structures describe them as cold, almost frozen, regardless of the season. Doors creak open without the touch of a hand. Windows reflect things that aren't there: shadowy figures, faces twisted in anguish, and sometimes even the viewer's own reflection, staring back with an expression they didn't make. One explorer recounted seeing a group of children playing in the distance, their laughter carried on the wind. But as he approached, their forms flickered, dissolving into a haze. Another spoke of a lantern that seemed to float in the air, leading him deeper into the village. It wasn't until he reached for it that he realized the lantern wasn't floating, it was held by a figure he could not fully see. Perhaps the most terrifying accounts come from those who linger too long. Time moves differently within the village. Watches stop. Shadows stretch and twist in impossible ways. The longer one stays, the harder it becomes to leave. Some describe invisible hands pulling at them, whispering voices urging them to stay, to join them. And when dawn breaks, those who do escape find themselves far from where they began, often miles away, with no memory of how they returned. But not all are so fortunate. Scattered through history are fragments that hint at the village's dark origins. A 16th century map depicts a settlement in the same region, marked simply as Silens Aeterna, Latin for eternal silence. The map's creator, a cartographer named Matthias Welt, included a warning in the margins: "This place belongs to neither the living nor the dead. Avoid it at all costs." Folklore from the area speaks of a sacred grove desecrated by the village's founding. The elders warned against cutting the ancient trees, claiming they were guardians of a fragile boundary between worlds. Yet the settlers ignored these warnings, clearing the grove to build their homes. It is said that the land retaliated, dragging the village into a liminal space as punishment. One of the most compelling clues comes from an obscure religious text, written by a monk who lived nearby. In it, he describes a night when the village disappeared: "The earth wept, the sky screamed, and the bells tolled thrice." The village was no more, taken to a place where sin cannot hide. The text also mentions a peculiar phrase repeated in prayer by the villagers before their disappearance: "Forgive us, for we knew not the price." Together, these fragments paint a haunting picture of a place torn from reality, forever trapped in a cycle of penance and torment. But the deeper one digs, the clearer it becomes. Some mysteries are not meant to be solved. Some doors are better left closed. Those who remain in the forgotten village past dawn seldom return. The village is a trap, a place where time unravels, and reality itself bends. As the first rays of sunlight pierce the horizon, the village begins to change. Structures that appeared ancient and decayed now shift, their edges shimmering like heat waves. The ground feels unstable, as though it could dissolve beneath your feet. For those who linger, the air grows impossibly heavy, thick with an oppressive silence. And then, the village takes them. Witnesses describe seeing companions simply vanish, one moment, walking beside them, and the next, gone. No scream, no struggle. Just an empty space where a person once stood. But some who escape speak of even stranger fates. They claim to have seen those who disappeared within the village, months or even years later, standing at the edge of the forest or in the reflections of mirrors. They never speak, their eyes vacant, their forms flickering as though caught between worlds. It's as if the village doesn't simply claim its victims, it reshapes them, binding them to its curse. Those who venture into the village often report ghostly figures watching from windows and doorways. These apparitions are not like the restless spirits of traditional hauntings. They are disturbingly lifelike, sometimes familiar, as though they mimic the living. Explorers recount seeing doppelgangers of themselves, staring silently from the other side of a glass pane or at the edge of a dimly lit alley. Objects found within the village are no less unsettling. A cursed locket was once recovered by an explorer who dared to take a relic from the village. Within days, the explorer began hearing a soft lullaby wherever she went. Her health deteriorated rapidly, and she was found weeks later in a catatonic state, clutching the locket so tightly it had embedded into her palm. Another tale speaks of an ornate key discovered by a thrill-seeker. The key was intricately designed, with markings resembling ancient runes. When he attempted to use it, the door he unlocked led not to another room, but to a black void. He was never seen again. The most chilling twist lies in the whispers. Many who enter the village claim to hear their names called, as though by someone they know. Following the voice inevitably leads deeper into the labyrinth of streets, where reality grows increasingly distorted. Those who heed the call are never found. One of the most compelling accounts of the forgotten village comes from a man who escaped, if you can call it that. He claimed to have lingered until the village began to dissolve at dawn. He described the structures melting away, revealing endless black voids beneath them. As he ran, the village seemed to twist around him, its streets looping back to where he started. When he finally emerged, he found himself not in the forest where he entered, but in an unfamiliar town hundreds of miles away. The locals claimed the area he described no longer existed, if it ever had. But the man brought back something that raised even more questions, a faded photograph showing him, standing in the middle of the village, with people he did not recognize. He swore he had never seen them before, but the faces in the photograph were clear. One of them was holding his hand, as if they knew him. The most chilling detail. The back of the photograph bore a single handwritten message: "You were always meant to return." The man disappeared shortly after sharing his story. His belongings were left undisturbed, but the photograph was gone, as though the village had reclaimed its artifact. So, what are we left with after hearing the tale of the forgotten village? A place that appears only at midnight, a village bound to a curse, a space caught between time and reality. Those who venture too close find themselves lost in its maze of shifting streets, never quite able to escape. Many vanish without a trace, while others return, but changed. The question lingers, as chilling as the whispers that call you deeper into the village: would you visit this place? Would you dare step into a world where time warps, shadows move on their own, and the air is thick with unseen eyes? Let me know in the comments below. Would you be brave enough to uncover the mystery, or would you turn away the moment the bells toll at midnight? Don't forget to like this video if you're still curious, and subscribe for more stories that will make you question the world around you. The village is waiting. But remember, sometimes, curiosity is a door you can never close again.